Cool. So I think we're now recording. Raisel, you have 2 cameras. You're very pro. So hello everyone. For those watching afterwards, this is the first AsyncAPI SIG meeting, and we're gonna be discussing a few points in the agenda today. We're here with Mike Ralphson, Raisel Melian, and Jonathan Schabowsky. We're a lot of people here, but you know, the beginnings. So let me continue with the agenda. Yeah. So what? Sorry, what are you saying? No. Okay. So yes. So I was thinking on having a new cadence for the meeting instead of doing it every week, because you know it's the beginnings and it's difficult to have many things to say every week, all of us. So we're gonna put it every 2 weeks, and I think my proposal for that meeting is that we use it as a way to help others as well to understand how to contribute to AsyncAPI and to be more transparent, instead of using it as a way to coordinate work. So because we are very distributed team, we should instead use Slack and other async tools for collaboration, right? So yeah, let's do it every 2 weeks now. And regarding the communication, I was thinking on making everything completely public. You know that we have a core team channel which is private and only by invitation right now, which made sense at the beginning because everything was going to everything was going or being bootstrapped and was crazy in the beginning, but now everything's going to be, or we will try to have it more organized, and I would like to have full transparency here, so everyone knows and can participate on how AsyncAPI works. But it raises a question to me. How would you like to proceed with that if you have an opinion? Do you think we should make core team channel open, like public, we change it, or we just delete it and create a new one? I'm gonna give you my opinion first, because I've been thinking about it. I think just for the record, we should make it public, just to keep the records there. So we don't, because I've been reviewing the channel and there's no sensitive information or anything secret that we cannot share. You know? So it's fine if we make it public. And also, I was thinking on transforming this channel in a channel that people can use to ask questions to the organization, or to the core team, to the AsyncAPI core team, right? So they can just, for instance, if they have questions they don't want to answer on the general channel, and they want to ask how to contribute, or they want to ask something really probably minimal questions about code of conduct, whatever, right? They might want to ask us directly. So I'll leave the purpose of this channel just for that. What do you think?
I'm generally in favor. I think the possibility is we might need a maintainers channel in the future for dealing with code of conduct violations and administration, but we can set that up if we need it. Mm-hmm. But I'm happy with the existing core team channel becoming public. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what everybody else thinks.
One thing that I was thinking is if we should be creating more channels to split the communication, but it doesn't make sense right now because we don't have lots of people talking in the general channel right now. People speak there, like people write there from time to time, so it's not a chaos or anything, right? The moment it becomes a chaos or it's starting to become a chaos, we might have to then take the decision to split the conversation in different channels and just use general for general things, right? So yeah, anything else, Raisel, Jonathan?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a good idea to start using more the general channel because, you know, for new commerce users, it'll seem that there is no activity on Slack, right? They may think, oh, I mean, the last message is from 3 months ago, so this nothing new is happening with the AsyncAPI, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's not true. Yeah, it's not true. It's just secret.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no reason to have it secret. Cool. So you think it's better to make it public and not to create another one? What do you think? Either making it public or we delete it and create a new one.
Sorry, you asking me?
All of you.
Okay. You know, honestly, I don't think today any reason to keep a private channel because if you see, or that's what I'm thinking. I'm seeing all the messages in the core team channel, and it could really be public, right? Because it's mostly like and most of the time we need to publish duplicate content on both channels, right? Yeah. Because most of the time I get confused. Oh, should I put this in the core team or in the public? I don't know if it'll fit on the general or not.
Yeah. No, I agree. Cool. So Jonathan, you as a new user in the core team, were you feeling that like AsyncAPI was a death channel or something? Like nobody was actually speaking there? Because I know you've been in the channel in Slack for some time. I was stalking you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess from the completely external perspective, I mean, I didn't obviously know that there was a core channel, and I think that probably in order to get the community more involved, having more activity in a channel to show obviously that there is activity, I think is a valuable thing versus kind of general being I think it kind of was more of a Q&A channel, which then meant that, largely there's an external entity that's kind of asking a question or forcing something, which probably wouldn't happen as frequently as just internal sort of communication. Plus, having conversations split. I mean, obviously we can have a sidebar conversation with direct messaging if there's something I don't want to go to everybody. But in a lot of cases, I think sort of having decision-making being in a centralized channel where people can understand sort of the history behind some of the decisions, I think is also a very valuable thing. So yeah, I would be all for making, and I haven't have gone back and reviewed what all you guys have talked about in the core team, but if you guys are saying there's nothing sort of private, then I would be for, making that public anyway, so.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So, well, that's been easy. This is just, I think it's obvious. It was obvious that we had to do it publicly. So coming to the next point about communication and processes. The other day we were, I think it was you, Mike, who mentioned that we should be doing more async and greeting communication instead of just relying on these meetings, because before we were relying on these meetings every week just to keep us up to date, right? And probably to coordinate on things, but this doesn't work because sometimes people from different time zones, and not just time zones, people have other meetings, and they cannot just they can just get into this meeting always, right, every week. So yeah, I was thinking, as you suggested the other day, Mike. I was thinking on the sort of tools that you want to use or you think we should use, because I've been using Trello as a way to keep us all up to date. But it's true that having things in Trello and having things in GitHub makes it a little bit difficult to understand why things are in GitHub and why things are not in Trello. It's not just difficult to understand, it's just that they are not in sync, right? And this is a pain, this is duplicate work. And there's no reason to have, again, some private place where this works will happen. So I've been spending some time the last days trying to organize all the work, mostly all the work on the GitHub repo. So everything is public and we can discuss there, like if it were a Trello card or something, right? And also, obviously, we have Slack to discuss things. But I was wondering if there's something that you have been using in the past, other things, like aside from Slack or GitHub, other communication tools that you think they can be valuable. I think that they both are fine for coordinating, at least in the beginning, but just asking in case you guys have more experience. Is there something else that you think we should be using right now? Other kind of tool? You've been shy today.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other tool really needed. Sort of GitHub is kind of the repository of actions that need to be preserved. You've got the history of outstanding actions and actions that have taken place, and Slack is for the fast-moving communications. I've not really used Trello very much, but for everything I've used Trello for, GitHub projects can do just about enough. And of course, it has the benefits of being able to link issues to projects and milestones, which is quite handy because you can move issues between project cards quite nicely. One thing we're doing at the OpenAPI project is using GitHub issues for agendas for each weekly meeting, or in this case, it would be bi-weekly meetings. And we're using the pinned issues to keep a track of the last meeting and the next meeting. So people can see the previous agenda and the next agenda. And maybe pin another issue with all the communication tools, like listing the Slack invite link on a pinned issue might be worthwhile. So people can always find the information about the calendar and Slack invitation, etc., etc.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, I see. I see it. I think it's a good idea. Yeah, but
because Google Docs is yet another form of communication that
I know.
I'm not 100% sure we need, but maybe we do. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes. I was the other day. Yesterday I was having troubles just with Jonathan because he couldn't see the header of the document with all the links, and I don't know why. It was I just had to remove things from the header and put it on the body of the document, looking like a header, but it's not, and it was weird. And then sharing these things, like for instance, you want to edit the list of participants. So he just requested access right now, and it's true. You have to be always like, crap, it's true. How do I edit this thing? How do I give permissions to people? Forgot. Yeah, everything. All of this is solved with GitHub, right? Like everybody knows how to do it. So obviously it's a little bit more complicated because you have to commit or fork or things like that just to add a paragraph probably. But so it has pros and cons. Probably we could use I don't know. Probably we could use the Google Docs just for the current meeting, and then we leave a record of the past meetings. After the meeting, I will put it on the repo as an issue, right? Or yeah, well, it doesn't make sense because yeah, it will be just for record purposes. But the cool thing about GitHub is just to put it there, visible, so people can join to the next one, not just to the old ones, right? Okay. I'll give it a try. I think we can pin some. I think we can pin up to 3 repos or 3 issues. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I think it's a good idea. Cool. Thanks. So moving forward, GitHub issues triaging. How do you pronounce this? Triaging or triaging?
Triage. It's a French word, I think.
French word, yeah, it sounds like. Okay. Triaging, I will say in Spanish. So yeah, I've been doing a lot this last days as well, like putting everything into the correct order. I don't know if you noticed it, but we now have milestones. I'm gonna share it with you. Yes. Okay. So in my head, I just try to group all the current issues that we have open. And before, you probably noticed it, that they were all labeled as version 1.3 and version 2, either one of the other, most of them. But then I realized, okay, this is gonna be a little bit awkward because we're gonna be working on version 1.3, and we're not gonna create any tooling for that version because at the same time we'll be working on for version 2. And it was like, let's just skip version 1.3 and let's go, directly to version 2, so we can just go faster and don't spend time in making people think that yeah, version 1.3 was something at some point when it really was nothing, right? So and also for all of us, let's not just let's not spend time updating the tooling or creating tooling for a version that's going to live for 2 months, right? So yeah, so this was discussed, I think, like 2 weeks ago or so, that we discussed here not to create more tooling for the current version, but instead to focus on the new version of the spec, and then we'll create tooling for version 2, because really the life for version 1 is very short. From now on, it's going to be very short, so it doesn't deserve the effort. So going to the milestones, I managed to group all the issues in more or less manageable amount of issues. we have there something called improving connectivity. This is just a cool name for all the issues related to the servers side of the server section of the spec. So it's just to improve how we connect to the servers, right? Or to fix things that are broken there. We have the normalized topics and support multiple schemas. This is the major thing for version 2. So this is in case you don't know, what I was thinking here is topics. We can make topics look like URLs, not just look like they are URLs. Okay, and I'll explain why afterwards. And then with this, we have two advantages, or even more. One of them is we align with OES, with OpenAPI specification. So all topics and paths will look the same. We have, because of this, because it's a URL for tooling, it's going to be easier to parse these paths because there are plenty of URL parsers out there, right? So for tooling, it's going to be easier to parse this than an exotic format that we might invent. And also, because of the nature of the paths, we can then get rid of the events section of AsyncAPI. The events section is, as you know, is the communication between 2 points where there are no channels or topics. It's just like WebSockets. You connect to a server and exchange messages, right? So we can get rid of it because if we think about it, we can make it mandatory that the slash, the root path is a global channel if you want. It's like no channel, right? There's no channel, or it's a global one. So we can make the slash as a global channel. We remove the events section, and we can make or we can even make mandatory to every path to start with slash, for instance. And then it's just a matter to translate this to MQTT or AsyncAPI. Everything is going to be easier because if someone already created a parser for the OpenAPI specification with the parameters and all of that, we can take advantage of this. You know, this is one thing. And the other one is about the multiple schemas. Many people are asking for support for more than just a schema, like protobuf or ever, right? And the reason I put it there, like almost immediately, one of the first things to make is because these are the most breaking changes that we have in the list, and I would like these breaking changes to happen as soon as possible because they can potentially affect the rest of the things. So we don't want to work on something, right? And then, yeah, true, we forgot. This is gonna be affected by the future change. No, let's just make the biggest change first, and then we're safe to go, right? Yeah, and improve user experience. So this is basically, these are issues that were there mostly because people were suggesting things like having the payload media types, the Rumble-like traits, things like that. Things like having a title and a name on the message object. These things don't really make a difference, like in terms of functionality, but it makes it easier for people to write AsyncAPI documents, right? So the development experience is much better. And in the case of content type, it's much better for the tooling developers. So because if you have the content type, obviously you will be able to provide better user experience for the final user. What else? We have the augmentation. The augmentation is just for now. It's just for overlays. I know since Mike pointed me out for OpenAPI overlays, that you guys are discussing that. I think Darrell has a proposal. Do you know the current state of the proposal there?
Yeah, it's got some good sort of positive feedback. I've also done a proof of concept implementation in Node.js, and it's about 90 to 100 lines of code, so it's not massively heavyweight.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember why it's not progressed to a pull request yet. I think it may just be a question of time on Darrell's part.
Okay.
But I don't think anybody's got any major objections to it, and I think there's a fair chance it'll get into 3.1, which is being, I think, the last we talked about. We're aiming for May for 3.1.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah. So again, this is gonna be a way also to keep aligning both specs as we evolve, right? At least on the major things, and also then there's a last milestone, which is protocol mappings, and this is mostly a group of issues related to how do we make it easier for people and for us as well to map AsyncAPI messages and or information, I would say, to specific protocols, like what's the mapping for AMQP, what's the mapping for MQTT, how this mapping should be done, right? And for instance, like having correlation IDs, so how do we do the whole thing, right? How do we map this to an AMQP header? Do we put this in the payload or in the header? Or do we have headers at all? Like, things like that. And yeah, so one thing that I wanted to mention about the milestones is that I put some deadlines there, and most of them are very aggressive deadlines, I have to admit, just to keep an idea of what do we want to do, because I think it's a good idea for us to not lose track of things, of how things will be nice to evolve, right? I understand that just me right now is the only one working on it 100% of my of the time. I'm happy to solve 90% of these issues. I'm not asking you guys to work on that, right? You're not getting paid for that, at least yet. And yeah, so just wanted to mention that this is something just to have as a reference. Okay, so I hope nobody feels pressure because of that, because there's no pressure at all. This is you guys are doing a fantastic job here, and I will not ask you for anything. Just wanted to make it clear. Okay.
So one, Fran, I have a question. Are we considering for those milestones the tooling support? I mean,
tooling. You mean?
Are we going to continue completing milestones, even though the tooling could be left behind? For example, I think it's really important to try to keep up to date at least the playground with all these milestones. Because, you know, as we have said before, and Mike knows very well. I mean, in my opinion, one of the reasons GraphQL is have gained such popularity is because of the tooling, right? Yes, you can play right away with the specification and the tooling. I think we need to consider that to take it into account.
Yeah, this is very valuable contribution, because something that I was thinking is that to start developing tooling, the moment we have, like, for instance, we are just 2 milestones ahead of launching version 2. We have a roadmap. I don't know if you guys have time to see it, but there is a pull request with the roadmap, and so my idea was to launch to finish all these milestones, and that's why they are all prefixed with v2.00. And at the end of this, we will launch version 2. So not in the meantime, right? We left many time behind us. We've been waiting so much for version 2 now that it has grown a lot, and that's why I had to split it so we could tackle it in a handy way, right? But my idea was to finish these milestones. We'll launch AsyncAPI version 2, the spec, I will say, or we put it as a release candidate. And in the meantime, like before we finish the last 2 milestones, we start developing the new tooling. Okay, so and we will also have to be developing the new roadmap. And I think that the next step for the roadmap after we launch this is just to be very aggressive on tooling. Like this is just the base work. AsyncAPI version 2 is just like the contract. It's fine, it's cool, but it will be nothing if we don't have tooling, as you said. So we have to go there. We have to go for tooling for sure. Not sure if we should do it at the same time we develop the spec, because there's the risk of having to change things multiple times, right? And make repetitive work as things are changing and they are not, let's call it production ready if you want. So yeah, but I agree. I'm happy to get insights from you guys on how we should proceed with that. Like, so we start with the tooling from day 0 if you want, or from day 1 or 2 with so of this new version, or shall we wait a little bit more, or shall we wait until the end of until we finish the version 2? What are your feelings? What do you think? We should start working on tooling, as Raisel said, like at the same time, or shall we wait a little bit more?
I didn't say at the same time.
No, you have to. No. You cannot say the same thing. No?
I wonder whether we could maybe have a release candidate after the spec is feature complete.
Yeah.
And maybe we start working on tooling at the release candidate stage, or a beta stage after an alpha stage or something like that. Yeah. And then we hold off the public release until we've got some kind of baseline of tooling ready.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you go to the roadmap document, it's exactly that. What I expressed there.
Okay, I was trying to skim read it, but obviously I didn't succeed.
Yeah, so if you go to the AsyncAPI launch, version 2 launch, the previous one is release candidate launch. And there's a new AsyncAPI, it says that. There's a new AsyncAPI version, and now it's time for the tooling vendors to finish implementing it.
Perfect, yeah.
We don't know how much time we will spend there implementing that, and I was putting things like very formal, but tooling vendors are almost 100% ass. So, well, at least now I know that probably now with MuleSoft and Solas and working with it, there will probably be more tooling and and typical as well is developing some tooling. So, but yeah. So the thing is that, but that was my idea. But I think there's a point on what Raisel was saying. Instead of waiting till the end, like corporations, big corporations do, right? Like they have projects and project dependencies. We can make it a little bit more agile if you want. Like this is the fancy word, and we can start working at the same time in something at least, so we don't lose so much time on tooling, right? Because in the end, the spec is nice, and I love working on the spec. I really love it. But what really provides value most of the times is the tooling, right? Either the tooling you build or the tooling people build, and that's another discussion that we will have to we will need to have in the future. But it's also what kind of tooling we're gonna develop.
Yeah,
right?
I was actually going to say that from a tooling perspective, right? I mean, obviously there's DocGen, there's CodeGen, and then I think there's tooling like, you know, we're looking to actually bake into some of the products we're developing right now around sort of cataloging and kind of exporting things as async API specifications. And then I think there's even the things that it seems like Mule's looking to build, which would be like, you know, as part of their API management solution, right? Like being able to import the beginning or end parts of their mediation flows, right? So, I mean, to me, there's like different aspects of tooling. And I guess I'm kind of curious from your guys' perspective. I know you guys kind of DocGen seems to be a core thing, and CodeGen to some degree, though it's, you know, kind of in its infancy as we would expect. But then, I mean, as we start to incorporate into our products, right? Like, I don't think we would take something until final, but I think the code generation stuff should start off as kind of release candidates. So it's my 2 cents at least.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. But I was asking this question because the more I think about it, when we think about tooling, many times we think about products instead of tooling, right? Like, for instance, DocGen or CodeGen, they could be products themselves. Like they have an utility for the end user, right? Like you can just pass an AsyncAPI document and you get the result for the end user. But I was thinking more on this kind of SDKs, for instance, like you input an AsyncAPI document and you tell the SDK in Java, for instance, that you want to use AMQP, and it will do it for you. Like it will connect to a server using AMQP. AMQP. It will transform the messages into AMQP protocol and will map it correctly. You know, low-level SDKs. And I'm thinking on that because one of the problems that we're seeing now with OpenAPI adoption is with the new versions adoption is that people have to change their product to support the new version, and it's because historically we spend a lot of time thinking on products, on CodeGen and DocGen. But if you want people to actually be able to really fast update their products, you have to provide them the low-level layers, right? Like the parser, to have a parser for Java, a parser for Go, a parser for Python. You know, all these things, so they can use it immediately in their products, and then a little bit more of work like mappings, how to map to protocols, so they can just with much less effort, they can just start saying, hey, we provide AsyncAPI 2 support or 3 support or 4, you know, and they're not stuck with the old version, because there's nothing out there that help them progress on implementing the new version, right? I'm thinking, for instance, as you said, for instance, that imagine that we have MuleSoft. I don't know what really their plans are, but imagine that we have an API management solution, having docgens and codegens, it might help them to have these things because they might be able to figure out how to parse these documents. But I think for them to upgrade to new version will be better to have these layers, like just a raw parser, right? Like I parse it and I get serialized information, right? And then I will do whatever my product does with that, right? So yeah, I was just thinking aloud, right? I don't know what you think.
Yeah, well, one thing here, I think one thing that we need to do is to prioritize the tooling that we want to support, right? Because we have very limited resources right now, right?
Yeah.
And you just said, I mean, code generation can be a problem on its own, right? Because we can create code generation for like hundreds of languages framework, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is the other single parsers, linters, right? The playground.
Yeah.
So I think we really need to prioritize and work around that, because for example, right now, you know, I'm been working on this linter, right, that I start creating it. So I think that that's really a very important piece of the whole tooling ecosystem, because it's like the base, right? That you parse some AsyncAPI, and if you can, we can have validation to validate in your pipeline. I mean, it'll be used many ways, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly that. It's like, for instance, in your case, it's also like a product itself. Like having a linter it's already a product, I would say. But it's a product that many people will use, in the sense that they can have it as in their CI/CD pipelines to validate their documents whenever they change it on GitHub or things like that.
The other thing that I've seen people are asking is for the Node.js code generation.
Yeah.
And I've seen some new users struggling with the code generation.
Yeah.
And I think you have some a ticket in one of these milestones.
Yeah, and I know, I think it was you, Jonathan, who told me about the Java generator. You tried it on the last meeting. You told me, maybe.
Yeah. So probably so it was back last spring. We launched, as part of our, I work in the CTO's office, basically an investigation into, kind of what we were coining internally. How do you make eventing look like REST, right? And so that's how we found you guys in the first place. And I tried to use the Java code generator because I'm a Java guy. And I don't know, again, everything is subjective, right? But I was a little bit horrified by the output of that. And obviously it said it was like experimental and I was using it at my own risk and all that kind of stuff.
Was it like you said the last spring?
Yeah, it was last spring.
It's not your Java generator, Raisel. I think it's one guy who eventually did something, but it was not finished.
Yeah, it was like half baked, and so I then basically went, okay, well, I can't even get it to work. And so I then turned bits and pieces of that, because again, I'm not also, by the way, a hardcore coder, right? Like I pillaged that code for like, okay, how did it generate the Java objects? And then that's how I built my homegrown Spring Cloud Streams generator, which, I've now shown to customers, and customers all actually really like that idea, because we kind of have been pushing Spring Cloud Streams a bit for event-driven microservices. And so in the meeting, right? Like that would be an example of something, obviously we need to clean it up, but like something we would like to contribute back to the community and kind of do that through our different customer bases as they need generators. Like the FAA makes very wide use of JMS. So like a JMS generator on AsyncAPI would be very useful for it and all the airlines that have to consume FAA data, but FAA data is generally XML. So that's why I was making the point in the MuleSoft meeting of supporting XML, which you guys have already thought of. So that's a very long-winded to say is like, I definitely view the whole kind of code generator thing as a very key aspect of how do you make eventing just as easy as developers kind of view REST as very easy to use either to generate the API or the client.
Yeah, and that's great because we already have. I initiated a Java code generator, and I mean it would be great if you can also collaborate and contribute to that generator. Yep.
No, and that's something we definitely, I think, will want to do. I mean, we're in the process right now of actually adding a person to the team that just focuses on AsyncAPI in that community. So, we would be bringing that person to bear. And to your point, right? Like, I think he would be sort of a dummy tester. He'd help make the community well known, along with hopefully developing as our customers need additional tooling. Like we can help that. I think we'd want to understand sort of the framework which you guys have in place to help build that, and such that like as you guys go through different versions of the spec, like ideally it's not completely breaking everything every release. I mean, obviously some changes, right, always happen, but like not like, oh God, we just spent 4 weeks building a generator and like, oh, throw that one away. Like time to go spend 4 more weeks on a new one, right? Like that would kind of suck. So,
yeah.
So I think we'd want to understand that. But I mean, I think, I think we're very excited to be, a part of this community.
Sounds promising. I'm sure we're gonna make a great job together. I'm sure.
And one other thing I'll just add, and then I'll get off my soapbox. So you guys mentioned sort of the transformation of protocols. I don't know, maybe you guys are already like completely like protocol experts, but like our product already on our broker backend, maps between JMS, AMQP, MQTT, and REST. And I believe on our website, we have documentation of how we did those protocol mappings from like a mapping headers to headers and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying we did it the right way in all cases. I hope we did. But, if you're just looking at like, I think that's something else we could provide is at least how we did it. And maybe that's helpful or not helpful. So.
Cool. So that I'm sure that helps. Yeah. I know we can keep speaking about the protocol mappings in the next meetings and how we're gonna outline this, because really it's a huge effort because we have to start thinking about the range of protocols we want to give support, at least initially in the tooling, and also the range of languages. Like this it's just not Java and Node.js, right? So there are other languages. Probably we should not get we should not get crazy trying to add support for everything in every language, right? Because I didn't have the calculation, but the possible combinations, it's a little bit high. So, and with our resources so far, it's gonna be extremely hard to follow, right? So yeah, we probably have to discuss in the next meetings if we have to, what languages we want to support for the tooling and what protocols, right? If not in the next one or one of the following ones, right? But yeah, so just wanted to check out with you guys. How do you think we're doing now within this new way of organizing? How are you feeling now? I know it's been like a chaos, especially the last 3 or 4 months. Sorry from my side, I've been like, going crazy trying to put it as a serious project now, and I didn't have so much time. But I hope you guys are having much better experience now, and this is a project that we all do. We all contribute. So I told Raisel yesterday I would like to have the focus a little bit less on myself and more on us as a group, right? Because everybody's like pointing, Fran, yeah, it's nice in the beginning, like, yeah, you know, it bloats your ego, but that's not really good, right? That doesn't scale. And not everybody can be coming to me to speak about async API or to implement everything or to do everything, right? Like, I want to put you more on the stage and say, hey, this is the async API team, right? Everybody can join, everybody can contribute as well. So we welcome everybody, and let's just talk about us and not just Fran, right? so yeah, I hope you're enjoying this new way, and if you have a suggestion on how to improve it, just let me know, okay? And we can keep improving this. Sounds good?
That's great.
Cool. So I have to.
With all this new revolution that is happening.
Yeah.
In this couple of last days.
Yeah, it's been a very long weekend for me. Like trying to organize finally. Like, okay, let's do it on the weekend because during the work days it was impossible. So yeah. Cool. So I have to skip to the next meeting now, and I have to quit. Okay. Thanks for joining. Okay, let's keep in touch via Slack and you know, in async communication. And yeah, tell me.
One last question. Are we going to start communicating through general channel from now on?
Yeah, yeah, I would prefer that, but I'm gonna write something there. So,
okay.
So everybody knows, not just the four of us, right?
Okay, that's great. Yeah, because I have one question now that I wanted to pose, and then.
Yeah, let's give some life to the public channels.
Okay.
Cool. So thanks, guys. It was a nice first SIG meeting.
Yeah, that was great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. On the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.